Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today we speak with a mother, wife, grandmother, owner of Beauty Bee Skincare, and a woman of faith who started competing in 2017 and completed 8 shows before turning pro at her 9th show, the Masters Nationals in Pittsburgh, where she won the overall before going on to take 7th place at the 40 and up category at Masters World Championship for her pro debut. I had the pleasure of meeting this woman and her husband in Ohio at the Arnold. That's where we connected. And after talking with them, hearing more of her story, I knew I had to have her on the podcast. So welcome to the show, Emily Dean. How are you doing?
Thank you, Celeste, and thank you for having me. I feel so honored to be here and on your podcast.
It's my pleasure, truly. You are so sweet, and I'm happy to have you. And of course, I open every show by asking if there's anything you do or a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
Oh, well, the great thing about my journey is having an amazing support system, which is my husband. And he is behind every backstage with every competition with me. He takes care of all the fine details, so I don't have to worry about anything, and seeing after me. And he even does my tan now. Like, we do
Wow.
everything. And of course, we always say a prayer before hitting the stage.
So that's something I want to open up with, because I know your faith
Mhm.
is really important to you. You make this very clear. We had discussions about it as well. Was there a moment when you came to have faith, or has it been a belief instilled in you since you were a child and it never, there wasn't an epiphany moment of acceptance?
No, it has definitely been a journey. And, it's like I grew up in a small town in southeastern Oklahoma, Antlers, the deer capital of the world. And, it's like growing up, you go to church, and you just that's kind of the normal thing to do. But, going to church and having a relationship with God is two completely different things, which I have come to learn. And it wasn't until later in my life, after the tragedy of my mother's suicide, that through that process, we all go through bad experiences and things in life, and we have a choice whether to fall back and feel sorry for ourselves and turn to things that are not good and healthy for us, or we can pick ourselves up and put our energy into something positive, turning our pain into purpose.
Absolutely.
And that's basically, what happened. And actually, I owe so much to my husband. Like, I get emotional.
Wow.
He saw me before I did. He
Mm.
believed in me before I did. And so he's the one that actually inspired me to start a fitness journey. And through that, he found my first nutritionist, my first trainer. And I'm sorry, I did not want to cry.
No, it's beautiful.
And he just so I was like, he was like, you could really do this, I was like, you think so? And I've always been athletic. I was a cheerleader, I did gymnastics, and I've always been very competitive growing up, playing basketball, tennis. I was actually the quarterback to my Powder Puff football team in Antlers back in the day. And, like just through that whole process, when I first started my fitness journey,
Wait. You were the quarterback?
for my Powder Puff football team.
That's so cute. I love that. Okay. I was like,
Yes,
wait, did
your
I
girl
hear
can
that?
throw the ball.
That's awesome. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh no, you're good. And just through that whole process, you know, I actually just lost my train of thought, but
because I interrupted you, I'm sorry. You
no,
were
you're
talking
good.
about how you were always an athlete. Your husband saw your greatness before you did, and you started living this lifestyle.
Yeah, so we just started on this journey, and the very first thing he did was tell me that I need to do a vision board. And this was actually before I had my relationship or started, really getting into my faith. And I was just kind of like, whatever, that stuff don't work, da, 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 da. And he was like, no, seriously, you need to. And so one day I was like, fine, I'll do it. And I still have that vision board in my bathroom from going on 8 years ago. And so, I had scriptures on there, I had quotes, and Amanda Latona at the time was the person that her physique I looked up to. My husband actually calls her Amanda La Booty because she has a nice booty. And, and then like like I said, when I first started, my goal was I never imagined getting a pro card, like ever. And I was just doing it just to have a goal and have something to focus on, and it wasn't until my 5-year anniversary, my very first show was the Jay Cutler Desert Classic. I did not tell a soul. Like, I have this whole big group chat of all my girlfriends, and none of them even knew. I did not tell no one. I'm like, it was a personal journey. It was for me. Plus, it's like if something didn't work out, I didn't want to feel like a failure, And so it wasn't until we were backstage at the Jay Cutler and I took a selfie and sent it in my girls group chat. And I'm like, so this is what's going down in Vegas this weekend. And they're all like, what? They're like, we had no idea. Like, are you kidding? And I'm like, yeah. So, so like I would like do a show, take, 3 months off, start feeling fluffy again. And then I'm like, okay, time to do another show. And so I did that for a couple of years. And then it was my 5-year anniversary, and I actually took a group of friends back to Vegas for my 5-year anniversary. And ended up winning my class there and taking 3rd place in open.
It's awesome.
Which was amazing. I was way more proud of the 3rd place in open than my 1st place in my category. So in my age division, because I was 40, 45 plus, 40 plus, 40, 45. And so it was after that, I was like, I might actually have a chance. Because I had won shows, but I never felt like I knew my physique was not national material, to go for a pro card. And then finally I attempted it twice, got 3rd place. And I will tell you, my first show there, I almost missed my stage time. Like, I was getting makeup done. I did my own hair, but I was getting makeup done. And I'm telling you, those nationals move fast. And when I got backstage, one of my besties, Stephanie, that I compete with, she was like, girl, where have you been? She was like, you're hitting the stage now. I had no time to pump up. No, I'm throwing on my shoes, my earrings, like everything, and going right out on the stage. And by the grace of God, I still ended up getting 3rd place. I'm like, it was crazy. So I ended up getting 2 3rd places and then going back the 3rd time for my pro cards, which that weekend was the most amazing weekend. And my husband actually spoke the entire weekend over me. Like, and, I'm like in my mind thinking, the Kobe Bryants of the world and, all these amazing athletes, they don't just do the bare minimum. I'm like, they're going above and beyond. And so I kicked it into high gear going into this last national. I was working with our high performance coach at Titan Sports and Jinx, where I train my clients. I was working with him. I incorporated HotWorks. I'm like, that was an amazing little addition to my prep. And I mean, just even going in there for like stretching, doing my stomach vacuums. I would even go in there and with the infrared heat therapy and hold my poses and practice my poses. And so when we were gearing up going into nationals, one day he was like, God told me something. He gave me a message and I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, he goes, yeah, you might want to sit down for this. And I'm like, okay. And he said, he told me is that we're going to go down to Pittsburgh. He said, and you're going to win your 45 plus class. I'm like, okay, cool. And I was like, and then you're going to win the overall in that class. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, but that's not it. I'm like, okay. He goes, you're going to win your 40 plus class too in the overall. And I was like, that's crazy. I'm like, both classes. I'm like, okay. I'm like, you're getting a little out there right now. And then he was like, but that's not all. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, what else? And he goes, you're going to go on to compete in the pro show the next day, which is the Masters World Championship. He goes, and you're going to get first call outs. I was like, you are out of your mind. I was like, only by the grace of God would that happen and I might pass out. And I'll be dang if everything did not happen exactly like he said. And, it was funny because my nerves had never, ever, ever been so bad leading into this nationals. And I wasn't letting anyone know it. It's like, don't let anyone see you sweat. And I was like, just trying to like dismiss the nerves. And I remember a sermon by Pastor Craig with Life Church talking about how when you are on the verge of your breakthrough and you have all those nerves and like anxiety and you just can't shake it, that is the enemy trying to hold you back from your purpose. And he is like, and once you break through that, it is so good. And I just kept thinking that over and over in my mind. I'm like, I see you. I know what these feelings are. And I was like, and you are not going to pull me down. I was like, I am not going to let these nerves get to me. And when I stepped up on the stage to walk out, he had on this bright flamingo, like Hawaiian shirt. And I was able to spot him in this huge crowd.
Wow.
And when I saw him, he looked at me and he went like this, like, get up. And I like straightened up and I was like, and it was on and popping after that. So I told him from now on at all competitions, he has to wear some bright, crazy shirt so I can spot him in the audience. But that weekend was so amazing. I was like, I felt like I was 6 feet tall. No one could tell me anything that weekend. It was just everything fell into place.
So this is a beautiful story, and I want to get a little more detail on two parts. So the first part I'd love more detail on is how you actually got to that point where you could release those nerves, because you said this was something kept replaying in your head, but what was it that let you have the release to fulfill the purpose in which had been spoken to Les?
Honestly, another thing was, so my stepdaughter Cameron, which I don't really like the name Step, but to be respectful of everyone. I've raised her since she was 6 years old, so
Mm.
she's mine. She is just a natural on stage, and like I told you before, she's actually working towards her pro card,
Yep.
which I'm super
Well,
excited.
when she gets it, we'll do a mother-daughter duo ep. That would
Oh
be
my
cool.
gosh, that would be amazing. I would love that. And she's done competitive cheer since she was 5 years old, center flyer. I mean, she just graces the stage. She's a natural, performer, competitor. And one of the things that she told me was, don't think, just do. And I'm like, yes, I'll go with that.
That's cool.
Like, you just got to shut it off, and just block that out and know that everything you've done has brought you to this day. And, so much of what we do and in this industry is mental.
Mm-hmm.
And you really got to, it's so important who you surround yourself with, what you're feeding yourself as far as social media, what's on TV, what you're listening to, all that is so
Absolutely.
important. Like every morning, I have my routine, which so I get up and I've actually started taking some cold showers too, which that's been a journey in itself. I
Hmm.
actually took my first ice bath not too long ago. I'm like,
Okay.
whoa, that was crazy. Um, and so I always start my morning listening. Well, first off, I read the Jesus Calling every morning and do that. And then I go to YouTube, and whatever Start Your Morning with God comes up, that's the one I listen to. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, well, that's the one Jesus must want me to listen to today. And so I will listen to that. And then I train clients in the morning at Titan. So I'll go there and do that. And then, go on about my day and work out with my bestie Meredith. She's been my workout partner for the last several years. She's been on
Oh.
this long journey with me. And it is just so important on who you have around you. And ever since COVID and quarantine, all that, we've really evaluated who we have in our lives and cut out a lot of toxicity and things that weren't um, good for where we were headed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So those were a lot of really great key points.
Mhm.
So one, it sounds like your daughter made a big impact on letting go of those nerves and you were able to just stop thinking, start doing. You had already up leveled. You specifically referenced some of the greats in other sports and how do you emulate that? Well, it's going above and beyond. So there's another key.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that you mentioned too was really just having that environment that supports you and taking inventory on it. And I think a lot of people did do that. Some people, I think it took them down a different road. And I think others, it took them down the road that they had the vision for. And it's a great piece of advice, just anytime in life to look at that. And then having a routine. You just kind of took us through what a day looks like for you. And I think connecting with something that gives you the purpose, gives you that vision is important. And I believe that because most of us tend to fixate on the outcome, not so much the
Mhm.
process. But if we become process oriented and we celebrate what it's bringing to our life, we gain more meaning and purpose in it. And I think you have had that type of experience for yourself, but I want to hear how listening to your husband speak life over you, which you referred to it as earlier, and him putting this massive vision on you and how that kind of increased some of the nerves, some of the pressure
Oh, yeah.
to fulfill that like
Absolutely.
prophecy essentially. How did that message come to him? Like what made him, like how did he know this was communicated to him and what made you trust that it was from God?
So my husband was raised by his mom and grandma, who are huge lovers of Jesus. They were married to Jesus basically. And like his faith, I mean, he is such a huge part of where I am in my faith today and loving me where I was. And when I finally realized that, that we are fighting darkness and principalities of this world, and that there is a devil out here, and no one wants to give the devil credit for anything, but they always want to blame God for everything. And I'm like, that, I don't think that's fair. I'm like, no, you need to give the credit to the devil when he's out here causing chaos and destruction and trying to steal our light and our joy, and when I did finally, like I said, it was a process when I started like realizing things and really feeling the Holy Spirit. And when I told him, I'm like, babe, I said, why didn't you tell me sooner? I'm like, this is amazing. And he said the sweetest words to me, and I'll never forget. He said, I was just waiting on you to catch up. I was like, oh. I'm like, that's amazing. And, and it's just like loving people where they're at, because not everyone is where I'm at or where I've been, or, I'm like, we all go through struggles and in life, and, none of us escape bad things from happening, and having that support system was just so amazing. After my mom's, so growing up, I had my brother, who we were 14 months to the day apart. He was January 1st, I was March 1st. And he was in a car accident his senior year, lived for 15 months before he died. He had massive head injury, lost all of his motor functions. And my mom had to care for him that whole time. He was in a coma for like 3 months and came out of it, but he would have never lived a normal life. But my mom woke up to give him his 6 o'clock meds, which this was my senior year. And I'm 4 months pregnant with my oldest son. Got pregnant at 17. And well, my mom woke up at 6 a.m. and my brother had passed during the night. Yeah. Sorry.
No.
Where was I going with that? And, so like with my mom, to back up a little bit. So to understand people and, because of the way they are, you have to know where they have been and how they were brought up. And, I wish so many times that I wish I was where I am in my faith today back then. Yeah. You just don't know, but like I said, it's all in God's plan. Sorry.
No, okay.
But of course, my mom, grew up in a very abusive household with her siblings. And, first marriage was abusive. She was addicted to prescription pills. I mean, although let me say first, my mom was so good growing up, both my parents, and the values and morals that they instilled in me and the things that they taught me, like there's really not much I can't do. I mean, I can do yard work. I'm like, he always gives me a hard time because I always talk about replacing the ripcord on my lawnmower. I'm like, I was a single mom for 8 years. So I'm like, I had to like figure some stuff out,
Wow.
And but I'm just so grateful to my mom and my parents. And it really wasn't until after my brother's accident that everything really started going downhill. And and then later on, my dad got Alzheimer's and dementia and prostate cancer. And so then he wasn't able to work. And through that whole process, her mental state of mind. She just could not get out of her depression and all that. And I ended up having to remove my dad from her custody because his life was in danger with her. And, you know, I believe that it's okay to set healthy boundaries, even if it is family, you know, and it doesn't mean that you have to stop loving them or you don't care about them. But for this season, like, we just got to set some boundaries, you know. And of course, I had to take on my custody of my dad and do all that stuff. He died a couple of years ago. And it was after that when she ended up committing suicide. And on Mother's Day, it will actually be 8 years this Mother's Day. So, where am I going? I keep losing my train of thought. And, you know, what was I saying?
I don't know. You're making me emotional though.
I know, you know,
I-
it's crazy. When I look back on this journey, I'm like, wow. I mean, if you had told me 8 years ago that I would be a 2-time like IFBB Bikini Pro, I'd be like, you are out of your mind. My oldest son, Alec, he's 28. I call him my angel baby. Like, he literally saved my life. My brother and I were best friends, and in fact, he's named after my brother.
I was just
His
going to
middle
ask
name.
that.
Yeah, well, it's Alec Keith, but my brother's middle name was Keith. So,
Love that.
but you know, after winning my pro cards, it was such a special moment because he was congratulating me and told me that me doing this changed the trajectory of their life and his life.
Wow. How so?
Just that you can do anything that you put your mind to, and no matter what obstacles, that no matter what comes your way, that you can get through them, and that the sun will come out tomorrow. You know, that there's better days ahead.
Yeah.
You know,
Gosh. It's all
I
hitting
know.
me too, because I'm looking at you and I just think you're so strong and resilient. Like, you've been through a lot, and it must have been really nice to have your son, who you consider your angel baby, actually say the message that your story really does represent one of resilience and of continuing to move forward.
Yeah, you know, I mean, because like we basically grew up together, you know. I mean, I was 17 when I got pregnant with him. And you know, I mean, we've been through it all together. And of course, then I had my other two, Sarah and Marcus, which aren't even a full 13 months apart. They were almost Irish twins, like almost 14 months apart. So I'm like, all my babies.
Oh, that's so cool.
So, you know, I'm like, of course, you know, when it's not just you don't really have a choice, you know, you're just grinding it out, living day by day. And, you know, I think that's one of the amazing things with my journey and my process is that getting a pro card was never my goal. It just became that over time. And like I had said to you, my dad was a chiropractor. And so, like, I've never even been immunized other than a tetanus shot and a COVID vaccine.
Was the tetanus shot so you could hold a baby, or because you touched some rust?
No, actually, I cut my leg on an old rusty doghouse.
Okay.
My mom at the time was like, Emily, you better go get a tetanus shot so you don't get lockjaw. I'm like, okay. And so, you know, and it's, I have, you know, no knock on, you know, anyone that does PEDs or anything like that. But, you know, for me personally, I've never taken a PED. I have done this all natural, just with hard work and time, you know, time and consistency. And it really wasn't until like one day I took a picture. I'd gotten home from the gym. And of course, I also had a picture on my mirror of Amanda Latona.
Uh-huh.
And also above that, I had a little thing saying, "Dear haters, I have so much more for you to be mad at. Please be patient." Because, especially starting in this industry, you get a lot of negative, like, feedback from people,
Yeah.
thinking, like, I don't think they just really don't understand. Like, until you're in it or know, don't judge,
Mhm.
you know? And I had come home and taken a picture, and I had a similar outfit that Amanda had on in the picture. And someone goes, "Did you make it look like the lady in your picture?" And for the first time, I was like looking at my vision board, and then I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I have just been working day after day, month after month, year after year. And I'm like, it finally clicked. I'm like, no way. I'm like, I've arrived. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is so good. And, just taking one day at a time and not really having any expectations other than just living a happier, healthier, fuller life. Because I also did, like I said, I worked in corporate America and I did marketing for some home health agencies.
Mm.
And being in those skilled nursing facilities and the hospitals and stuff, I'm like looking at these poor people and I'm like, there is nothing golden about their golden
Mm.
years. And that is not what I want the latter part of my years to look like. And, that's one thing that's really like fueled my fitness and making it a lifestyle. I love my preps. And actually, I'm super excited to be on with working with Adam, Team See You Later Leaner. Um, because up until this point, I've always done a meal plan.
Hmm.
I've never done macros. And I'm loving it. I mean, at first I was a little scared because, we're always scared of the things that we don't know.
Mhm.
And I'm like, this is way more manageable. I'm like, but I've never like had a bad prep. I've enjoyed all my preps, and I'm like, I've never done a whole excessive amount of cardio. I think the most I've ever had to do is like 45 minutes.
Wow.
Actually, Adam has me doing a little bit more now, but it's also a whole different process. So, being in Vegas the other weekend and this being my first time, prepping with him, I was asking him, I was like, so what's these next few months going to look like? And it was a good thing that we went because it really motivated me to like start doing my check-ins and sending in my
Yeah.
stuff because he was like, well, when you get back, he was like, we're upping your cardio to an hour, 5 days a week and cutting your carbs and doing this. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, let's go. And he
Yeah.
goes, but you have got to be sending me your check-ins. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, sir. Like, and so, I'm like, in this where I am now, I'm like, all the things that I was telling myself that I wasn't good at, I was just being lazy, honestly. And I'm going to change those things.
Yes.
And I totally have, like, even with my I started looking at some editing software, for social media and stuff like
Mhm.
that, which I was like, I'm not um, really good at tech stuff and, all this social media stuff. And I was like, those are lies. When you hear all these, when you're telling yourself all these negative things like, I can't do this, I can't do that, or I'm not good at, those are lies
Mm.
from the devil. I'm like, no. I'm like, we can do anything that we put our minds to. And I'm like, that's how he works in trying to hold us back and keep us from our reaching our purpose. And when I realized how he works, I was like, you're not getting another day of my life. I'm like, you've already taken my family. Like, I'm the only one out of my immediate family. Like, my dad's gone, my mom's gone, and my brother.
Yeah.
So, and thank God I have the family that I have now and my kids. And, it's like God has been so good. I just could not imagine having so much peace and happiness after the stuff that he has brought me through, even when I didn't know he was there.
Yeah. That was my biggest lesson. All the times I thought he wasn't there, I look back and I'm like, he was always there. Like it.
Always.
Yeah. And you said at the beginning, it's about relationship with him versus anything else. And I think that's a really key component. And I want to go back to something you said too about the way you were raised. And I just want to get your perspective on aging in this sport of bodybuilding and how you continue to evolve with your training as well as your nutrition, which you just touched on, as you get older. And what advice would you give to others who are maybe looking to maintain their fitness and their health as they age and pursue this sport too?
You know, like I said, there's no shortcuts to long-term goals. And I personally don't want to put anything in my body. I mean, of course, when I was a teenager, that was a different story, or even to my early adulthood. So, obviously that has all definitely changed. It's like you get to a certain age and you see things so completely different than you once did, and making better decisions and choices. And, I would say, when you're starting out, things could look and feel so overwhelming. And like, you just have to, like they say, look at the first stair. Don't look at the whole staircase,
Yeah.
and that is so true. You just have to take one day at a time and just stay consistent. That was the key for me when things really started changing. Because, like I said, when I first started competing, I was just doing one show, then I'd take 3 or 4 months off, and then I would get back into it because I'm like, okay, I'm not liking the way I'm looking again. I'm like, nature's taking its course. And I was like, this is for the birds. And so I was like, once I started staying consistent, and even through COVID and quarantine, when everything shut down, my girlfriends and I, we were like, we didn't even think twice about it. When they shut everything down, we're like, all right, what do we do? I'm like, we can't not be working out. And so we turned our upstairs, we have downsized since we're empty nesters now. But we had a 2-story house, and we turned our game room into my gym and was getting gym equipment. I mean, when I first started, I was doing Anita Herbert,
Yeah.
I was doing her 6-week challenges. And of course, they had gym and home workouts.
Yeah.
And so we were also almost had a flood here in Tulsa, and we were like right off the river. And so there was a chance that the levees was going to break and our neighborhood was going to get flooded. So we had cinder blocks and like put our furniture up and all this stuff.
Wow.
So I was able to refurbish our cinder blocks for workout stuff. Like was using cinder blocks for like sumo squats and stuff. And then it has the hole. So I was able to run my weights through the holes and make it heavier.
Yeah.
And like there's like a stair routine at Lifetime Fitness where I used to go on the Stairmaster. And so I would do that stair routine on my stairs. I would set a timer, and I had the full loop body bands and wrapping around the furniture and using it as like a leg press. And like, it was crazy. We got very creative, but we came out of COVID and quarantine looking amazing.
That's great.
This is so good. I'm like, we will not be denied.
No, there's always a way through. Like I was in prep during 2020 as well, and there was so much going on. My life was changing rapidly. Like, we actually had a fire in our house a week out from escrow. I grabbed my bikini. I grabbed my meals it was peak week for me.
Oh
All the
no.
shows were being canceled. I'm not missing a show when I finally get to step on stage. Grab my bikini, my heels, my computer, and all the meals that I had prepped for peak week.
Oh,
And then I had to evacuate. And then I lived out of a hotel for like over a month. And my mom was already living in another state at the time because they were moving to South Carolina. So there was so much, but where there's a will, there's a way. And I had been in prep through 2020, like making it work. And I think when you really want it, you're willing to do it. It's not an all or nothing type of mentality. Like, oh, I can't go to the gym. I'm not going to do anything. I can't have this food because the grocery store ran out of it. Then I'm not going to do anything. Instead, you find ways, and you guys got really creative. And I think that's a testament to your commitment. You came out of it, you were improved, you're feeling strong, you were able to continue the lifestyle. And I think this also speaks to the idea that a lot of times our challenges do teach us a lot, which you mentioned earlier. You've learned a lot, you have gratitude for it. What are some of the things that maybe you had to shift in order to make the improvements to go from third at those national shows to then actually winning your pro card? And once you did win it, you said it changed a lot for you. So what changed at that point?
Like I said, I think in order to, first off, to become a pro, you have to look like a pro and feel like a pro. And you have to have your mental game together,
Mm-hmm.
and it just goes back to just who you surround yourself with and the environment. um you know and it's sad because in this industry I have learned that there's so many hurt people, I mean everywhere, but in this industry, and people are chasing you know things, and looking for happiness and things to fulfill them in all the wrong places, and my perspective and how I believe is until have a relationship with God, you're never going to get, I mean, you can get your pro card and do all that stuff. I'm not saying that, but I mean, like mentally, and finding that peace and happiness and joy, only comes from Him, and you're not going to find it in anything else or through anything else. And it kind of goes back to learning to love yourself, and I always said that until you can learn to love yourself, you're never going to be in a healthy relationship either. Like, how can you love somebody else and show them the kind of love that they need and deserve when you can't even show yourself love?
I had to learn that lesson myself. Mine was about respect. Like, I wasn't respecting my commitments or my goals or my body or myself. So then I was like in relationships where I was being disrespected or cheated or whatever. That
Mhm.
kickstarted a lot of my journey. But I also agree that when you love yourself, you're going to be more inspired to take actions that are loving, like how you nourish your body, move your body, how you speak to yourself, how you interact with others, the types of boundaries you set, the types of boundaries you respect as well.
Mhm.
So I think it's really beautiful that you're driving that point home, that was important to you. And let's talk about what is a healthy relationship anyways, because you've talked very highly about your husband and how much he supported you in this. And I really wanted to ask you this question, which is, what are some of the things you've learned in building a marriage based in faith? And what do you think other couples would benefit from knowing or doing that you feel has helped you guys foster that relationship?
Obviously, always having God first in your relationship, in your marriage.
Mhm.
And He's such a strong, spiritual leader, in our marriage. Um, you know, and it's just communication and having respect for one another, and having grace and forgiveness and, like all the fruits of the Spirit: love, patience, kindness,
Mm.
self-control, long
Mm-hmm.
suffering,
Mm-hmm.
like all those things. I mean, not to say like we've been through our storms too, and have overcome many obstacles as a married couple and raising kids and a blended family. And, we're each other's third marriage.
Oh.
So I'm like, we had to test it out a couple times before we got it right.
Hey, three's a great number.
It is. It totally is. And, it's like my first two marriages, like I got into pretty quick. And so when I met Les, we dated for like 5 years. And finally the kids are like, when are you going to marry my mom?
Oh.
And we're like, we're getting there. And actually, I was in a head-on car accident right before we actually were supposed to get married, before like a year or so before we were actually to get married. So my dress hung in our closet for over a year or so before we rescheduled our wedding.
Wow.
So yeah, I had my ulna broken too. Had to have surgery on my knee. So yeah,
Wow.
I'm like, it's been a journey, girl.
It's so interesting. Like, the more people I talk to and meet, and the more experiences I have personally, the more I realize, like, you only ever really hear like a quarter of what someone's been through experiences. And when you start talking about your life, or someone's asking you about your life, or like I'm interviewing
Mhm.
you, right? More comes out, and you're like, oh yeah, that also happened. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I also went through that, but we moved through it. So it becomes like something we've experienced. It's not like an identity or a defining factor in our life. But when we look
right.
back, we're like, oh yeah, that was actually impactful, or that actually did happen. And that's part of the story.
It is. It's part of our journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I had met you guys, were just so vibrant together. It was really awesome just to have that dinner. I was so upset that Sean wasn't there, honestly, and I keep texting him. I sent him your message from last night, and then I was telling him like
Oh,
we got to get together with them, and unfortunately that didn't work out either. But I'm like speaking so highly. I'm like, I really wish you had been there, because me and him are growing in our faith together, and it's something that I really value. And we did this devotional called Respect and Love, or Love and Respect, together, and it was really insightful. And I think it spoke a lot to like what people need. And you touched on a few things, which is there's some difficulties that come up in relationships, and if you have that grace, that compassion, that patience, that love, etc., you can foster that. But there are storms you weather together, and you had to get to a point where you're willing to commit to him after two marriages prior, and your kids were on board, everybody wanted it, you had a little setback. But now that you're in it, what's different about this one compared to the past ones that you think has allowed you guys to continue to grow together?
my first two marriages was basically, you know, so like this was after obviously my brother's accident, and my mom's depression was so bad at the time. Like I couldn't stand to be around it anymore. It was just so heavy, and like I can't ever imagine losing a child. And I'm like, and now, I'm like, you can't ever judge anybody until you've walked in their shoes,
Mm-hmm.
and um what was your question?
How this marriage is different than the last ones that you
Yeah.
think allows it to
And so
grow.
yeah, so like my first two was basically to get away from my mother.
Hmm.
To be completely honest,
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
like, I'm just looking for a way out,
Hmm.
to something new. And, sometimes, what we want isn't God's plan for us. And one of the things I've learned is if you're with somebody that God never intended for you to be with, it will be a living hell. I'm like, you're
Hmm.
going to go, it's going to be constant chaos
Hmm.
and, trouble. Like, because it was never meant to, to be like chaos, and like we were created to be together and to, live in harmony with one another. Of course, we're all in flesh and, human, and you're going to have arguments and stuff, but you know, I just think you need to have somebody that's aligned with your values and morals and faith. And like, luckily, even though I wasn't where I needed to be in my faith, he still loved me where I was,
Mm.
until I caught up.
Yes, beautiful. I really appreciate that perspective. And sometimes it's hard for people to recognize they're living in chaos because it's what they know, it's what they're used to. So how did you come to realize like, okay, this isn't right for me?
Yeah, so my ex-husband, actually, he had 5 adopted kids, which I raised for almost 5 years. So we
Wow.
had his, mine, and ours. I mean, at one time, there was 10 of us. We had a
Holy,
13 passenger van that I
wow.
drove. I'm like, it's crazy. And it's
Football
so
team.
funny. I know, right? So we would, I'm driving, I'm 21, 22 years old. So I
Wow.
had my daughter at 21, and then I had my youngest son at 22. And it was so funny. So like we'd be in this 13 passenger van going into Walmart, and people are looking at us like, don't you know what causes it? It's like
Yeah.
crazy. Like we have all these kids, it's just been, and actually one of the older ones, Andrew, has come back into my life after 20 years
Mm,
and is actually living here in Tulsa now. And
wow.
so that's been a blessing having him back. It's been crazy.
Yeah, that's really amazing. You've been a mom for more of your life than not.
Yeah. And I think that's just I think when you go through traumatic ex- experiences and go through things, and you have loss in your life, you value life more, and
Yes.
you value the relationships around you. But in that marriage, I just, you know, it wasn't, it was good until it wasn't,
Yeah.
and the way the environment was not how I was raised.
Mm,
And I wanted better for my kids, you know,
yeah.
basically. And so it was timing. It was a time to go and move on, not to say that, I don't, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
That's
it's
fine.
just, yeah, I'm like, all things, not all things work out, but I'm here now, and it's brought me, I don't regret anything up until where I am now, because without everything that's happened exactly how it's happened, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yep. The things we perceive as good and the things that we perceive as bad are all put on our path for a reason. And there's a reason you are where you are now. And that leads me to wonder what your goals are moving forward with competing as a family and with your skincare line.
Oh, well, we have a lot of amazing things in the works coming up. I am planning on doing the Nashville Fit Show in
Oh,
August, the pro show.
awesome.
Yeah. So, really looking forward to that. And then going back to the Masters World Championship in September, with Team See You Later Leaner. In fact, I believe Fran is going to be competing in that one too.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So we'll all be there for that. Um, and we're working on a platform, honestly, to help promote my skincare line, which that was a blessing and amazing how that all came about too in itself. That was totally a God thing.
I want to definitely hear about that, but tell us about this other project.
So, well, and actually, we're actually going to be doing some work with Adam and Fran
They
and
have
all them
filled me
working.
in. They've told me a little bit. Fran especially got excited and was talking to me about it. And of course, it's not my news to share or even encourage you to share. It's just if you'd like to talk about the project, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, well, all I can say right now is good things are coming for our industry.
Yeah.
And it's going, the thing about what we have going on, which we can't wait to actually release to everyone, is that everyone wins. Like, this is something that is going to help everyone in the industry. It's like it makes everything better.
Cool. Well, everyone will have to just follow along with your journey to see that announcement.
Absolutely.
Now, talk to us about the skincare line. How did that come about, and what is the purpose of it for you, or how are you like why skincare? When I earned my bachelor's degree in psychology and went on to earn my clinical mental health counseling degree and even become a national certified counselor, I knew I wanted to bridge the gap between competitors and mental health professionals. Too often, athletes are told that they can't compete and have a healthy relationship with food or their body, and I absolutely disagree with that. I have helped thousands of women globally to build more than just a body by combining psychology, personal development, mindfulness, and my signature peace through growth process. If you are struggling with the post-show blues, or you're struggling with adherence to your prep, or any aspect of your relationship with food, your body image, or overall commitment to your goals, I have tons of resources available for you over at www.celestial.fit. Things like a free food relationship coaching series, free post-show blues coaching series, a full competitor card deck with statements to use for affirmations, journal prompts to go through, and even action and behavior changes that you can implement right away. I really believe that by prioritizing the inner work and developing a healthy mindset, competitors can have a more fulfilling journey. And I know the mental side of this sport is really key to establishing longevity, ending the yo-yoing from show to show, and really establishing goals that span well beyond the stage. If you're looking for that support, head over to www.celestial.fit, where you can find tons of free resources or even apply to work with me.
Well, for one, I love my lotions and oils and all this stuff. So one of my husband's business partners who lives in Louisiana um lives on a farm, and they grow their own lavender, and
Oh,
they had blessed me with this package of goodness. And so one night I go and I do my bath salts and the body butter and like the scrub and like all this stuff. And I get out of the bathtub and I go in the living room and I'm like, babe, I'm like, this is the most amazing stuff I have ever put on my skin. I'm like, it has never felt so good.
the
And
lavender
so
specifically?
yeah, so we have like lavender, vanilla, lavender. We have some other scents, but mainly lavender. And so everything is all is infused with essential oils that they have imported in from around the world.
Hmm.
Everything is organic, vegan, cruelty-free, paraben-free, sulfate-free, which is what we need for our tans. And actually, they have helped me create a skin prep bundle
Oh,
for
that's
our skin
awesome.
before competitions. And all my products have healing components in them. And it's about healing the skin from the inside out and replacing the moisture in our
Hmm.
skin. And I'm telling you, when I say my products are from Jesus, they're literally from Jesus. So we have Dead Sea salt, bath
Oh,
salt, and they're literally imported in from Israel, from the
that's super
actual
cool.
Dead Sea. So I'm like, yes, thank you. Well, I have a skin prep a facial bundle with a toner, a moisturizer, and an eye cream, and a facial scrub. Well, the moisturizer and eye cream has frankincense in them.
Oh, there you
They
go.
smell amazing. Everything is really lightweight. It's not overpowering. It's just a whole lot of goodness. And I also have a muscle rub that is to die for. It's a eucalyptus muscle rub. And we have sponsored some shows here in Oklahoma with my products. And doing the muscle rub and stuff. And I had this one guy when I was setting up my table come by and was checking out my stuff. And he was a retired veteran. He was like in the police force. He'd been shot, stabbed, had his arthritis really bad. And so I was telling him about my muscle rub. And he said he has bought and tried every single cream out there. And so I gave him a sample and I was like, well, take this back to your hotel room, take a shower, rub it on. I was like, and I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow at the show so you can tell me how amazing it was. And so the next day at the show, I turned around and he's standing there and he was like, it worked. He said it was the first time that he has had any kind of relief from his arthritis. And it's infused with the oils too. So it's also moisturizing and nourishing to your skin. It feels so good. In fact, I even like putting it on before I work out. Even if I just put it on my neck and shoulders, it literally just feels like instantaneous relief.
Wow.
Like stress, tension, mind to muscle connection. Like I'll rub it on my quads, on my shoulders, or
is it like
I'm
heating? Like what is the?
Yeah, it's like an Arctic chill. I mean, it kind of has some menthol in it, but it holds. It doesn't like just like absorb and go away, and it like stays in one place. But it lasts for a while, and it doesn't take a whole lot of it, and the smell's not overpowering. Like it's amazing. I'll have to send you some.
Oh, that would be super nice of you. That's so cool.
So here's my this is the moisturizer.
That's really pretty too.
Yeah, that's the eye cream.
So you developed it yourself? Like you came up with the mix and then you loved it, or how did that come about?
Actually, so our people that make the products, he is a farmer by trade, and then his daughter is a biochemist.
Oh.
And so this is stuff that they have done and created.
That's really cool.
The whole process is amazing. In fact, we have talked about doing some skinamars because I'm like,
I love that.
Nobody, like doing what we do, it's like, why do you do stomach vacuums? Why do you do, sit-ups? Why do you, do lunge? Like, why do you do anything that we do? And it's like, we take care of everything from head to toe, from hair, makeup, jewelry, our physiques, but nobody talks about taking care of your skin. And it's the largest organ on our body, and I'm like, I'm telling you, my tans take so good after prepping my skin with my stuff. I'm like, I could have a heyday backstage back here. But it's so funny because like even at the competitions, I'll be walking around with my muscle rub. And I ask people if they would like for me to rub some muscle rub on them and tell them how amazing that they're going to feel. And it's like, people may not want you touching them. And I'm like, yes, they do. I'm like, I'm like, you have to experience it to understand it. I'm like, I just got to get my hands on them. And I'm like, and as soon as I do, they're like over there buying it. They're like, that stuff is amazing. And I'm like, thanks.
That's so cool.
It is. Yeah. So I'm super excited. And it's so funny because, it's like, we always watch like these reality TV shows, and like everyone has a line. And I always told Les, I'm like, I want a line. I was like, it'd be I have a line. And then lo and behold, I'm like, of all things. And so, him being the marketing person, he owns his own marketing agency. And so, being the great marketer he is, we worked out a deal with them and like turned it into what it is now.
I think that's awesome. That's really cool and special that you're able to do that and bring it to this industry as well. And clearly you have passion about it and you use it yourself, which is great. Now, before I get your best advice, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish that I would have asked you?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
I think we covered probably quite a bit.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And I like to always get the advice for someone who's never competed before but would like to, and then your best advice for someone on their road to pro.
Someone that's never competed before. I would say, take one day at a time, make sure to interview your coach and make sure that they're a good coach and have your best interest at heart. I think there's a lot of coaches out there that to train females like a bodybuilder. And we are not men, bodybuilders. It's a whole different makeup. And having a good coach that knows women and hormones and all that stuff is so important, which that's one thing that attracted me to Adam, because he is so knowledgeable in all that. And, if you're having an issue, he's going to get to the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to mask it with something else. It's like he's going to get to the core issue. And then as far as going pro, working on your pro card, you just got to step up your game. I'm like, if you think that you're doing everything that you can do a little bit more, talking about your cup being full. He's like, but there's still always just a little bit more that you can put in that cup. And he's like, what's that going to be? Yeah. And just giving it your all and, just believe in yourself.
Beautiful. That just gave me that visual of that water challenge where people keep trying to you pour the water and whoever makes it overflow, you lose. But I did that with some friends for game night and we could add so much water to that bowl. We couldn't even believe it because it ends up making a dome. I don't know the science behind that, but ends up making more of a dome. It doesn't overflow, obviously, unless you put a lot of pressure. But it's one drop at a time. And it sounds like that's, how we can approach this. And I just appreciate everything you've shared and being vulnerable and keeping it real with us. And I want people to follow your journey, especially I think when your episode comes out, you'll be about 2 months out. So that's awesome. So how can people find you, connect with you, and even utilize or find your skincare line?
So I'm on Instagram. I have my BDB skincare Instagram, and then I also have my Emily Butterfly _ IFBB bikini. Yes, thank you. And then of course my website for the products is www.beautybeast.shop.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to put all that in the show notes, or I'll have my assistant anyways do that. So you guys listening, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section, which is alphabetized. You'll not only find the links, but you'll also find timestamps from this episode, a bulleted list of all the topics we covered, as well as a full summary too. So you know what exactly to tell your teammates, your friends, your family, what to listen to and look forward to when you tune in or when you share this with them. So thank you guys always for listening. Make sure you tag us as you do. If you feel inspired to leave a rating or review, it means a lot to me. And this was on YouTube. I should probably make a little recording at the beginning of this episode to let you guys know we also did this in video format. But just keep an eye out on that. Subscribe, celestial_fit. There's a lot more videos coming out for the podcast as well. But Emily, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you're in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.